Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever and
wherever
you are. Glad you guys could join us today.
you bet.
This is a second part in our study on cryptids, a Christological critique of cryptids.
Right.
Jerry, if you don't mind, tell us what a cryptid is.
Cryptid is not a mythological creature. A cryptid is something that is reported to exist. People have seen it, but there's just not a lot of hard evidence for these creatures.
Mermaid, griffin, unicorns, mythological creatures.
Mythological creatures.
Cryptids are animals that are plausibly, possibly true,
Right.
and science hasn't confirmed it.
Hasn't been confirmed.
People would have said that that the mountain gorilla was a cryptid.
Right.
Or the tanic, or these other animals we saw last week.
Right.
And then Western science confirmed they exist. People in the East, even the giant panda, people said they didn't exist. But once Western science confirmed it, then it went from the cryptid category to the actual whatever that would be.
Yep.
So all we're saying is, when it comes to cryptids, these things could really exist out there. And just because Western science hasn't confirmed it exists doesn't mean it hasn't.
Right.
Tonight we're going to begin a two-parter on Bigfoot.
Well, everybody's favorite cryptid.
It is mine by far. It's not even close. My second's Dogman.
Yeah. I'm pretty fond of the Mothman, but
It is
that one probably doesn't have a chance. But
Yes, it seems so implausible, Dogman, but I'm okay. I mean, I think of all the likelihood of all of them, Bigfoot number one, Loch Ness maybe number two.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I mean, I'm putting the cart before the horse. Let's introduce this Bigfoot character. So you see on the screen an AI rendering of Bigfoot, which basically is a gorilla with elongated face, and in proportions would be much, much bigger. It would be taller than a man.
Oh, yeah.
Gorillas on average probably aren't but 5 feet tall maximum. They're not real tall creatures. But we're talking about a primate somewhere mixed between a man and a gorilla. We'll look at the dimensions of these things here. And they range in size based upon where they are geographically around the world. So let's start off with discussing and defining Bigfoot. So I said there's two parts. So tonight we'll be basically introducing what Bigfoot is. And Bigfoot is not a single creature.
Right.
It is a family of hominins out there roaming the forest or whatever. It's a one in a species of creatures.
Right.
So tonight we'll talk about what it is, and the next week we'll look at biblical, scriptural data that may justify this creature's existence and where we go from here.
All right.
So Bigfoot, and this is so common, most of us know the definition.
Right.
Bigfoot is a very large, hairy, hominoid creature of legend, reputed to inhabit wilderness areas of western United States and Canada, especially Pacific Northwest, but not limited to.
No, by no means.
Bigfoot's been spotted in every state except Hawaii. So what comes to mind, Jerry? And maybe you guys watching this. Jeremy said he's going to join us and afterwards watching this and make comments to add to this. He couldn't make it tonight. He's got other obligations with church and whatnot. But so he'll add his insight. He's also a Bigfoot fan, one of our friends. So what comes to mind when you think of Bigfoot?
Bigfoot. My childhood.
$6 million man.
$6 million man. I had the bionic Steve Austin doll, and I wanted the bionic Bigfoot so bad. But no, Bigfoot was really popular in the 70s when I was younger, a kid, and it's come full circle, and he's just as popular, if not more so now than he was then. But Bigfoot does. First thing comes to mind is childhood. Second thing comes to mind is, does he exist?
Mm-hmm. And
or she?
Well, if it's a he, it has to be a she.
It has to be both.
It's a populating bunch out there. Do you believe that it is a mere legend, an actual animal, or something supernatural? So,
yeah, I mean, definitely legendary, and it's not just recent legend. There have been, legends that go way back to these kinds of wild men and hairy creatures. Very well, if it exists, it's an animal. Something supernatural, I'm not sure, about that category.
Yeah. So, if you had asked me 10 years ago, I'd have said 99% chance this is not a thing.
Right.
1% chance it exists. Well, I've moved on the pendulum. That's swung. The scale is sliding over. Now it's 60-40. 60 he doesn't, 40 he does.
Right.
So I've really moved. So I think you have to, if you had a sighting or an experience, you have to say, maybe it wasn't what you thought it was.
Yeah.
some at 60-40. You might be at 50-50, 49-51.
I mean, when I was a kid, it was 100%. You know, because it's like, you know, people just don't make this stuff up. You know, well, come to find out, some do.
That's right.
But when I was a kid, I was totally convinced of it. I never saw one or anything like that. But boy, I was captivated by the story. And do I want it to exist? You bet. That would be awesome if it existed. So I don't know where I'm at on that spectrum. I go back and forth, you know.
It's no shame if you say 70-30, 80-20, 50-50. I don't know. I don't know
where I'm at on it.
I just say 60-40 because I just want people to say that while I'm not 100% convinced, I'm not even convinced that it does exist. I've moved based upon hearing testimonials and reading things, meeting people. I can tell you 5 people that I've met that I know. I could call them right now that have had sightings. 5 people. I could call them right now. 5 people.
Well, I mean, obviously people fake sightings and fake footprints, but there are people that are genuinely convinced they've seen something, and they have seen something. But, you know, what have they seen? And they would say, there's no doubt in my mind. It was just clear as day, and I saw what I saw, and it was a Sasquatch.
None of these people have a book deal. None of these people are mentioned in any literature. None of these people have profited any. And in fact, to tell the story, they'll often say something like, "Well, don't think I'm a nut. Don't think I'm a quack. I know what I saw. This is what I saw." And many of them have seen it under the bright lights of a car, crossing a street, crossing a road, in places that was. I mean, maybe they didn't see it longer than 3 seconds, but I can see a fox for 3 seconds and know I've seen a fox. Yeah. I can see a deer for 3 seconds and know I've seen a deer.
Yeah, I saw a deer coming in here tonight, and a big old buck. Could miss him. Thankfully, I did miss him, but you couldn't miss what it was. Very identifiable.
Yeah, so it doesn't take long for the brain to process what you've seen. And most sightings, the majority of sightings, will be very brief in nature, crossing a road or a hunter in the field. Most of them aren't sightings that last more than a few seconds, though sometimes there are.
Yeah.
And so we're going to look at the evidence tonight of this thing. Does it exist? What is it? And what kinds of evidence constitute evidence?
And people are all over the place on what they think it is, you know. So
we'll look at some of those theories too.
You bet.
Start with the name.
What's in the name?
Let's take this.
All right. In August 1958, the Humboldt Times of Eureka, California, was the first to use the term Bigfoot in their story about huge footprints found by a worker, Raymond L., at Wallace's Humboldt County Construction Company. And
you can see on the screen there are some newspaper clippings of that Humboldt Times newspaper of Eureka, California, where the phrase Bigfoot is coined.
So that's a very recent term.
It has names that go way back.
Yes,
we're going to just look at some of those names. But as far as mid-20th century, when the name is coined to describe the thing that leaves big footprints.
Right.
You must have a big foot.
Got to have big feet.
Let's discuss some of the history if we can. Here's Gigantopithecus blackie is a genus or type of large extinct apes represented by a single species. Now, you can see on the screen there is a mummy, reproduction in a museum somewhere of an actual Gigantopithecus, which is a type of extinct large ape, which, if you can look at that picture, fits the modern description of Bigfoot.
Yeah, if you saw that in the woods, you'd say, "Well, Bigfoot exists."
Yep. You wouldn't think it's anything else. You wouldn't call it a gorilla, probably, if it stood up like that. You wouldn't call it anything. It's so commonly understood. We've named something that looks like this. It's Bigfoot. But this did exist. Gigantopithecus.
So.
Gigantopithecus blackie, which lived during the Pleistocene epoch, 2.6 million to 11,000 years ago. It's a big window of time. 11,000 years ago, we had inhabitants certainly in North America. But these creatures lived in southern China.
Yeah, the thing about Gigantopithecus is the foot would have been like a gorilla's foot or whatever. Kind of had the thumb thing going on there. So and that's the big debate about Bigfoot is, his foot looks more human than, say, the foot of an ape. But
it's leaving tracks like a human foot rather than this extinct animal, for sure. And plus you have this, it's reported to, obviously the fossil record shows it was in southern China, but anything that got to the New World crossed the land bridge, most
Yeah,
likely.
right.
So there's no people crossed the land bridge. So
Animals cross the land bridge.
we have no reason to think that Gigantopithecus couldn't have crossed the land bridge and come this way.
Mothman might have brought him over.
In the back of a Mothman. So measurements of the fossil teeth allowed paleontologists to estimate the primate's height and weight at 9.8 feet and 441 to 661 pounds, the largest hominid yet known.
Yeah.
If you saw this thing in the woods, you'd be terrified.
I'd be leaving the woods.
That's right. I would say it's time to go.
And I say, I saw a Bigfoot.
Now you see an Obi.
I see an Obi down here.
So Native American names for Bigfoot. We're going to spend just a little bit. We're going to hit this kind of as briefly and quickly as we can. So rather than read the Native American names, because we're going to butcher that.
Oh, yeah.
I can't pronounce Native
I
American
can't
names.
either.
Let's just read their translated names.
Yeah.
And as you read these, and there are going to be a lot of repeating names, please know that these are names that Native Americans called this creature.
Right.
They believed it to exist. It was carved in their totem poles.
Right.
Stories about this creature. They didn't treat it as it were a myth.
Right.
They treated this as a real thing.
Right.
And so if this hominid existed and Native American tribes saw this, they gave it names. So let's just listen to the names they called, they gave. So we'll alternate.
Yeah.
Wild man,
Sasquatch.
wild woman,
Tall burnt hair.
stick Indians,
Night people.
stick Indians,
Night people.
spirit hidden by woods,
Stick Indian.
one who runs and hides,
Wild Indians.
spirit spear,
The Five Brothers. Sounds like a burger joint.
It does. The evil god of the woods.
Boss of the woods.
Amen. King of the predators, buddy.
Right.
Wild man of the woods.
Wild woman of the
You'd
woods.
expect that.
Right.
Owl woman monster.
Or you just have Owl Woman.
A wicked cannibal.
The Cree Indian had a funny name for theirs. It was not available.
I guess there's no translation of Wutiko. Big elder brother.
And Big Elder Brother again.
Woodman.
Otter Man.
Man. Big man with little hat.
Bushman.
Stonish giant.
Or Stone Giants.
Stone coats.
Bad luck or disaster.
Cannibal giant.
Big person.
The cannibal demon.
Ooh, Bushman.
Giant.
The Stone Man.
Hairy savage.
Tall Man.
The masked being.
Oh, man. Living Solid Face.
The gamekeeper.
The Giant.
The frightener.
The Giants.
The giant.
Giant.
Giants.
Dangerous Being.
Devil of the forest.
The Unknown. Ooh.
Brushman.
The Trickster.
Big god.
Oh, man. There we go.
So I'm kind of at a loss for here. We read the English
Right.
words for this. Now we saw there's a lot of commonality here. It's big, it's hairy, it hides, it tricks, it's cannibal.
Yeah.
All of these names translated from these Native American ancient tribal languages all describe what people seem to see today in the woods.
Right.
They have Bigfoot sightings. They are describing what the Native Americans have consistently reported in their traditions. So either all these tribes just made this up, or it's a possibility that this thing existed and they saw these things running around the woods.
Right. Right.
Some of these are very terrifying names. Boss of the woods.
Yeah.
And, cannibal, and I forgot all the names of these things, but they're really bad names. A frightener, giant.
Devil of the Forest.
Yes. How else do you describe something that howls in the night? And I'm thinking of more modern day stories, that takes your domesticated animals, your sheep, your chickens, and runs off with them. Abducts your women and children and kills hunters out in the woods. All these things reported by these creatures.
Right. I'll play devil's advocate for a moment and say, well, Native Americans had their religion and their mythology, and there's a lot of mythological creatures and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much true across all cultures.
It is.
But there's always some basis of truth behind myths and whatever the myth's trying to convey. And certainly the Native Americans had across all tribes, a common Bigfoot.
Absolutely. That's a good point. It's a common thread, isn't it?
Yeah.
They didn't have all the same mythological creatures in common, but they had Bigfoot.
Right.
And when you look at these Native American totems, you see like an eagle and a bear, and Bigfoot's been brought into the totems.
Right.
And those other animals are bona fide, legitimate animals we can go to nature and find.
Right.
But why would you sneak in a mythological creature among in your totem?
Right.
That's an interesting sort. And I'm no expert in totems, but I know that Bigfoots have been found carved into totems.
Oh yeah, definitely so.
So, what kind of proof do the names for the Bigfoot offer the Bigfoot believer? All these Native American names. What kind of proof would that be?
Big, hairy, dangerous, even male and female. We had the distinction in the sexes there.
And it shows that these things were believed to exist by Native Americans. That's the kind of proof. It's not a novel invention. It wasn't made in Humboldt County in 1958 or whatever. This goes way back before the white man came to this continent.
Right. And it's not unique to North America. It's worldwide.
Right, and we could have researched and found names for this creature, like Yeti, in other parts of the world, the Yowie in Australia, the Yeti in the Himalayas. We could have gone. There's other native names for these creatures all over the world.
Right.
But we just looked at Native American tribes, and I don't know if we can exhaust the list there, but we looked at quite a few of these.
Right.
So it's a cultural phenomenon.
You bet.
And you can see on the screen it's part of our culture. Even if it didn't exist, it's
It
part of our
is.
culture.
It certainly is.
Whether it's messing with Sasquatch commercials, the beef jerky commercials, or the $6 Million Man, or Harry and the Hendersons, or In Search of series, or Bigfoot and Wild Boy TV series in the 70s. It's just part of our culture.
Yeah, I was looking at, I'll just say this. The Ford Motor Company has a Bronco that has a Sasquatch package. And it's an off-road package, but it's called the Sasquatch package.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's, it still sells, so it is a cultural phenomenon.
It's very marketable. You understand what that means. It evokes power and force and nature and outdoors. That you call something a Sasquatch, it evokes all those kinds of things.
Oh, one more thing about that. You can get the Ford Bronco with the Sasquatch package in a color that's called Area 51. It's a blue-gray color.
Get them all, man.
Cover it all.
That's great. So, I've been look out for that. Your next vehicle is going to be a Bronco Sasquatch package Area 51.
Well, I can't afford the Sasquatch package, but actually we are looking at the Area 51 Bronco Sport, which is the much scaled down version.
Nice vehicles. Can you take this on?
Yeah. As we said, Bigfoot's a cultural phenomenon. Consider some of the examples of Bigfoot in the following forms of media.
So you can alternate if you want to.
Right. Television, we have Bigfoot in Wild Boy.
And then if you remember the TV series in the 1970s, In Search of,
I watched it religiously.
And he covered all kinds of
Yeah.
unusual things he's searching for, and Bigfoot was one of those covered one time.
Survivor Man.
Yeah, Les Strauss.
Oh, yeah.
He has a series now on the Bigfoot. He reportedly had some kind of an encounter with the Bigfoot and stopped his other Survivor series and began this.
That's right.
Based upon his own experience. The $6 Million Man, which we're familiar with. You see on the screen. There were a couple of giants that played the Sasquatch. One was Andre the Giant that played him, and the other was the guy that played in the Addams Family. Right?
Lurch,
the Munsters. One of the two.
It's the guy that played Lurch, and his name totally escapes me. But I wouldn't miss an episode of the Bionic Man. And like I said at the beginning,
and Bionic Woman,
right?
Also had
Bigfoot, all kinds of stuff involved with that, and I love that show. And of course, they come out with the toys, and I had the Steve Austin doll, but wasn't able to get the Bigfoot doll.
Who knows, man? Maybe one of these Christmases.
You never know.
If I remember right, this turns out to be a mechanical thing, right?
Yeah,
it turns out to be an
kind
android.
of a mechanical thing.
But anyway, it just shows that this was commonly enough known in the 70s that they made all this stuff, and they still have it today.
When Star Wars came out, I was in junior high, and I didn't see the movie when it first came out, but I bought the paperback book, and it had pictures from the movie in it.
Chewbacca.
And I looked at Chewbacca, and I said, "That's Bigfoot."
Right.
It looks just like a Bigfoot ought to look. So
when they shot the indoor scene in the Pacific Northwest, and for Return of the Jedi. The man dressed up as, and I can't think of his name, was Chewbacca.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, he had to have security around him so that he didn't wander too far off set and get shot by the people in the Pacific Northwest, the hunters up there, because he looked so much like a Sasquatch.
You
bet.
bet.
Mistaken for it.
You bet.
Now, I guess the Ewoks, they didn't take any special precautions for those little guys running around.
Little big feats.
Peter Mayhew.
Mayhew. There we go.
That was the guy that played Chewbacca in the series. So yeah, he couldn't. He had to have people around him so he didn't wander off too far. Interesting.
Oh yeah, Finding Bigfoot. Watch that for a while.
I never found him. That's the disappointing part.
Yeah.
Of course, the great criticism of that series, I think, is they went about it the wrong way. They went with the camera crew and the sound crew and lights and out in the woods at night. And if there was any kind of predatory animal out there hiding, he was not going to make himself known or herself known with a TV crew.
Right.
That's not the way Bigfoot encounters work. You don't work with multiple digital cameras and perfect lighting and audio equipment. So they knocked on trees and, that's kind of what you
howled a little bit. And
you should have, this is just my critique of that series. You should have treated it like Jane Goodall and had one person go out in the woods where you have multiple sightings and just live out there with some rechargeable cameras and come back and forth, return and live out there until you get
and gather the evidence and bring the evidence in, or with your cell phone at least you could get some footage anyway.
That's right. A lot of videos taken and pictures taken nowadays with cell phones. And here's the problem with photographic evidence. We'll look at this in the future. If it's too good, it's fake.
Yeah.
If it's too bad, it's something else. It's mistaken. Blob squatches, that's not real. You're making that into a Bigfoot. It's just a shadow. But if it's really too good, then you say, oh, it's computer generated. It's CGI stuff. So you have to find the happy medium, that sweet spot between being too good of footage and too bad of footage to be confirmed.
And I don't know what that is.
Because you're going to have skeptics always doubt it. If people say that it doesn't exist, then any evidence you bring is not going to convince them.
Right.
True scientists keep an open mind. Right. And they say, it's likely not to be the case, but as evidence comes in, we wait always with the evidence until we figure out what's the truth.
Right.
Mountain Monsters, another show that was kind of a fun one. These hillbillies and rednecks going out there and building traps in the woods, and very entertaining.
I missed that one.
It's a good one. It's a good series because you get the characters are consistent all the week, every week, and they're just kind of these redneck guys that hunt these Mothmen. They do all of them. Chupacabra, they do all these things. But again, what do the two TV series have in common is they don't capture Bigfoot, they don't capture Chupacabra, but they didn't make the same mistake as they go out in the woods. Four-wheelers and ATVs and all those kind of things. So let's take a look at some movies. We're just going to run through this list very, very quickly here. There's dozens of movies that were made about Bigfoot that you can go out and you can watch them for free on Tubi, or if you have a smart TV, just go to the Bigfoot channel, and there's a whole channel dedicated to just Bigfoot. And some of the videos are pretty cool, and some are really bad. Most of the Bigfoot movies are the very best B movies. They're not great. We found a couple. We watched a couple together.
I'm a fan of cheesy movies, and Bigfoot cheesy movies are right up there.
And we're going to look at a partial listing. We'll kind of hit it, alternate back and forth if you would. And we'll stop and maybe comment on some that really stand out. So here's a partial listing of some movies about Bigfoot.
Bigfoot, 1970.
The Geek.
The Legend of Boggy Creek, my favorite.
That's the one. That's the one that most people are familiar with, Legend of Boggy Creek. Yep. And it really is. So it's suspenseful, it's scary, he reaches through the window, all these kind of things. But then in the end, it's really made to be sympathetic toward the creature.
Right.
There's a song about him. It shows how lonely he is. So this whole Legend of Boggy Creek, now while it's based on true events, it really is based upon the creature there. The sightings of a creature in Arkansas.
Right.
The movie is, I don't know how much license they took with the movie, but supposedly some of these stories actually took place.
Yeah, it's based on reported events. So,
Bigfoot Man or Beast.
Shriek of the Mutilated. Oh my.
Sasquatch.
The Mysterious Monsters.
Creature from the Black Lake.
Yeah, I tried to watch that the other night. Didn't finish it. Sasquatch, The Legend of Bigfoot.
That's a very famous documentary of sorts. And that's, I think, pictured in the posters listed there. Man, Beast, Myth or Monster.
Curse of Bigfoot.
The Capture of Bigfoot.
Boggy Creek 2.
So, yeah, we watched that together. We watched Boggy Creek and Boggy Creek 2, I think, together.
Yeah, this one has a kid in it, a Sasquatch kid. Mm-hmm. It was pretty good.
Yeah, and this is a true sequel to that. It's somebody from one of the colleges in Arkansas and a team of young interns go out and to this place. There's a sighting, and they stumble upon. I'm not going to give the plot away too much, but there is an adult and a child Bigfoot, as the poster shows you there.
Right.
And that's kind of it's a true sequel to the first one. Bigfoot, 1987.
Cry Wilderness.
And this is the next one's the one that most folks are familiar with.
Right.
Harry and the Hendersons. That's what most folks think of when they think of Bigfoot.
Right.
He's a big vegetarian that loves people, loves family-oriented guy that would do you no harm. If you took him in your house, you'd tear it up because he's just clumsy.
He's just a big old friendly dog.
Which is the conception many folks have of Bigfoot. If it exists, it's a tree-hugging, granola-eating, forest-friendly creature out there.
Yeah, and I'm not going to walk up to it and scratch him behind the ear, though.
Right. There's a lot of stories. I would say that the majority of Bigfoot stories you hear where people have contact with them, it's not a friendly experience.
Right.
The people are terrified. There's bluff charges. There's all kinds of stuff that you see. People, they slap the side of the house. They tear things up. While there are some people claim to have gifted these things and back and forth and made friends with them, I think the majority of stories that you're going to find are the ones where the Bigfoot is not a friendly thing.
Right. Yeah. This next one, The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot, is a recent movie. Sam Elliott's in it, and the guy that played Keeley in the Hobbit movies, I forget his name. It's a well-made movie, and it's just the title. You'd think, well, this is ridiculous, but it's the guy that
it is ridiculous.
Killed Hitler. Later on in life, was contracted to kill Bigfoot. So
yep. It's a fun movie.
Yeah.
So if you've not seen it, I would say if you just want to kill 2 hours of your life one night and watch a fun movie,
yeah,
Samuel Elliott's a good actor.
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy the movie. The Bigfoot's a little disappointing for me.
Yeah, that was the thing.
Well, I think it's good CGI. I mean, it's good makeup and good costuming. It's just not the Bigfoot I'd want to see. It's not the Bigfoot I imagine roams the woods.
Right.
But watch it for yourself and decide. It's just a fun movie. If you want to watch, all these are B movies. Maybe they're not going to be big blockbuster movies. Okay, so we looked at a partial listing of movies.
Right. Well, before we move on to there's tons of books, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Frank Peretti is a Christian author, and he wrote Monster. And that's a really good Bigfoot story.
Yeah, you got me that book.
Yeah. So I'd take the time to read it. I thought it was really, really good.
He's most known for Piercing the Darkness and This Present Darkness.
This Present Darkness.
But he's a great novelist, and he wrote that. So I need to pick that back up because I just set it down and did other things. So I'll get that back to that.
Oh yeah.
I read the first few pages. It was very good, but I just shuffled it beneath some things. I'll get back to it. So here's a listing of advertising uses of Bigfoot. A partial listing. Again, these aren't exhaustive, but just to show that this is part of the cultural milieu.
Right.
Bigfoot. When you say Bigfoot, everybody knows what you're talking about.
Everybody knows.
Because you've seen it in advertising and in movies and TV shows.
Yep.
We'll alternate these if you don't mind.
Yeah. Bigfoot and Sasquatch are pop culture terms that have been used in advertising across many different products and services.
So Jack Link's, this is the most popular and most recent. Jack Link's brand of beef jerky produces a series of popular commercials entitled Messin' with Sasquatch. These are very funny commercials.
Yeah, they're great. They're well done.
And normally what happens is, of course it's a beef jerky commercial, but normally what happens is one of the 3 or 4 guys out camping does a prank on Bigfoot.
Right.
And he gets angry and retaliates by overkill. Or does something really extreme to get him back. And so the funny thing is, don't mess with Sasquatch.
Yeah. I stopped to get gas at a service station, and they had the Jack Link's beef jerky sticks in a big Sasquatch, mug. Big plastic mug, and I said, "Can I put my name on that?" And she said, "You won't believe how many people have asked for that, and somebody's already got it." So, but everybody was wanting to have that big Sasquatch mug.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, be nice to have.
Yeah,
it's a shame that somebody else came along and saw it before you did.
I don't remember Red Robin. It's a television commercial with a hiker that speaks the words Red Robin, and here's a reply of Yum from Bigfoot.
Yeah, of course their commercials are Red Robin, Yum.
Yep.
And this I've not seen either. Must be in the woods. Bigfoot replies with that. Now I don't know. We're not live in the Boston area, but Boston Pizza used Louie the Bigfoot in a series of television commercials around 2007. And picture on the screen is Louie, their Sasquatch that sells Boston Pizza.
Right. Kootenai Beer used the Bigfoot name Mel in a series of commercials, putting him against the Kootenai Ranger played by John Novak.
American Insurance Company, Progressive, I remember this, launched a commercial in March 2020 depicting fictional saleswoman Flo having a conversation with a Bigfoot named Daryl, who is upset that people are so preoccupied with their outdoor recreational vehicles that no one wants to find them anymore.
That's sad. That's truly sad.
Well, Jerry, what makes Bigfoot a cultural phenomenon?
Well, it's just a part of our milieu, as you said. It's something that, kids early on want Bigfoot parties, and little boys and girls being cryptids, cryptozoologists. It just captures our imagination, and everybody can identify with it, and you put it on a product, and it gets people's interest. I think that's just like, if we go back to the Ford Bronco, got this off-road package called a Sasquatch package, and it just sounds cool, and you got to have it.
Yeah.
So, Bigfoot's cool.
Bigfoot's extremely cool. Even if he didn't exist,
yeah,
the idea of him is cool.
The idea of him is very cool.
It's like Darth Vader and Spock. I mean, these are just cool things.
Yeah, just cool things.
Except the difference is this might really exist.
Yeah.
This could be a real thing. Let's take a look at Bigfoot. This is the United States here, of course. Bigfoot and the law.
Skamania County, Washington passed a law regarding Bigfoot in 1969, declaring that any willful wanton slaying of such creatures shall be deemed a felony, subject to substantial fine and or imprisonment. The fact that this legislation was passed on April 1st, April Fool's Day, did not escape notice, but County Commissioner Conrad Lundy said that this is not an April Fool's Day joke. There is reason to believe such an animal exists.
Okay, so he was trying to back off that a little bit.
Right. The ordinance was amended in 1984 to preclude any insanity defense and to consider such a killing homicide if the creature was proven by a coroner to be humanoid. The Skamania County ordinance speculates on whether or not Bigfoot is a subspecies of Homo sapiens.
And that's the citation for that.
There it is.
And there's your county. It's in the north west part of Washington State, looks like. Was it Washington State? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's on the Canadian border, it looks like. It's way up there.
Right.
Right? Do we make sure I said that right? Yeah, that was Washington, Skamania County.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on to Wadham County.
Well, here we go.
This is Wadham County. So I bet if we look, we can find, there's Skamania County in the south.
Ah, there it is.
The Skamania County is in the southwest, and Wadham County is in the northwest.
It's just north and south of each other, pretty much directly.
Wadham County, Washington passed a bill June 9, 1991, which declared Wadham County, quote, a Sasquatch protection and refuge area. So 2 counties instead of Washington both passed legislation protecting this species.
Need to get word out to the Sasquatches that there's a safe place for them.
Yeah, it's what is that? Sanctuary.
Sanctuary forest.
So what were some possible motivations for the Skamania County legislators and Wadham County legislators to pass a law protecting Bigfoot?
I think there's probably a couple. One is the possibility that it exists. He, she, it exists. Secondly, that's the hot spot for Sasquatches and people out there hunting for them. So, that's just a couple of thoughts I had.
Get ahead of my shooting. So that's a possible explanation. The other is, to be more cynical, is that they know it doesn't exist. They pass it tongue-in-cheek so that they can attract tourists.
That's another reason, yeah.
So those are the two possible reasons. Was the mayor, whatever, I forgot, whoever it was in this county that made a statement.
Said it's not an April Fool's Day joke.
County commissioner.
Yeah, it's this thing may be humanoid.
Okay, so we have Bigfoot in legislation. You got to take that serious. We have Bigfoot in advertising and movies and pop culture.
Yeah, there's a Bigfoot themed restaurant in Tennessee somewhere.
Yeah, a Bigfoot burger, I think, there. So let's look at the evidence. So this is where we have to put on our hats as scientists and say, what kind of evidences are out there, and is the evidence good evidence or not? Again, we're just focusing on the United States. So if you're watching this in the Himalayan mountains and say, well, you forgot about Yeti, we'll get you next week. Or if you're watching this in Australia and say, you forgot about the Yowie, hey, we're going to mention you guys next week. We're just focusing because of our cultural biases in the United States. Okay, let's look at the evidence here. Since the mid-1800s, there have been 3,583 reported Bigfoot sightings in the United States. Now, more than that since I put this here. It's close to 4,000 at this point. British explorer David Thompson is often credited with claiming the first discovery of Bigfoot in 1811. They didn't call it Bigfoot. Bigfoot in 1811 after he is said to have discovered a set of footprints. On November 10, 1870, the Titusville Morning Herald, the newspaper, in an article entitled "The Wild Men of California," described gorillas that roam the local mountain ranges. 1870. Interesting. Okay, so evidence. So we have a newspaper article as early as 1870
Right.
saying that there are gorillas in the mountains over there.
Right.
What I didn't do, Jerry, and we're going to do this. There are dozens, maybe hundreds of newspaper articles from the 18th and 19th centuries that talk about these hairy men, gorillas. Of course, they don't use the word Bigfoot because the Bigfoot hasn't been invented yet. So when you do a Google search of old newspapers, you can look at wild men, hairy men, ape men.
Yeah.
All those keyword searches will show these newspapers what people were saying they saw.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I was riding with my dad, and you off the highway, the interstate, you can see like a shopping mall or whatever. Well, in the parking lot of the shopping mall, there was this tractor trailer, and on the side of the trailer it says Bigfoot Museum, and so me and my dad pulled in there and stopped, and you go in and it had recent newspaper clippings, 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, all about Bigfoot, just plastered all over the wall, and there were of course footprints and those kinds of things. So yeah, I mean,
you had a good dad.
Yeah.
On that criteria alone, he was a good dad.
Yeah, it pulled us right in there.
Okay, so newspapers, again, is it scientific? It's eyewitness reports.
Yeah.
And science needs more than eyewitness reports. But you know what? Murder trials don't.
Right.
If you have 3,500 eyewitnesses that saw you shoot Fred, you're going to electric chair.
Yeah.
It's enough to convict you.
Yeah.
And you can't discredit all the eyewitnesses because some eyewitnesses are judges, attorneys, law enforcement officers, people whose testimony in other areas can give a man life or death, can sentence him to whatever. So judges, law enforcement, though they can all be liars, right? They're at least in their professional work, their testimony carries a weight that's more significant than most people.
Right.
So newspaper clippings. There's a bunch of them. I just mentioned one, and we'll go on to another person.
Theodore Roosevelt. In 1892, Theodore Roosevelt wrote Wilderness Hunter, in which he described his friend's encounter with the Sasquatch. The animal is described as walking on two legs and was regarded as a half-human, half-devil, or half-goblin beast. The creature was described with a foul odor and a great body. The creature was shot when it approached Bauman's camp. It retreated in the night, only later to return and ransack the campsite. In the days following Bauman discovered his hunting partner. His neck had been broken and bitten. Roosevelt, often called the conservation president, impacted the national park system well beyond his term in office. He doubled the number of sites within the national park system.
Which leads me to think that he was so convinced by the existence of this thing that he sets aside for national, federal government ownership of many, many lands, acres of lands, double the national park sizes,
Right.
so as to provide a refuge for these animals, which of course you can't hunt in national parks. So it's a place that you're not going to be packing guns in and hunting.
Right.
So that's kind of the conspiracy, right? A man who reportedly was president, who obviously convinced people to vote for him.
Yeah.
He was a reputable, well-liked president,
Right.
By consensus, and he had this in his own book.
Right.
And then he creates this national park system. And
Yep. Well, he mentioned the smell. If you ever go to the zoo and if you can go to a gorilla enclosure, strong smell.
Yeah. They have a gland, I think, that can excrete a musty smell.
Smells like really, really funky BO.
And that's what many folks claim, that they smell when they smell Bigfoot. Now, most Bigfoot sightings don't have any smell at all.
Right.
Because you see them from a car, see them in the distance.
Right.
But even the close ones, many don't have that. Many speculate that if this thing exists, and if it is just a break primate, like a gorilla, it can make a scent when it's excited.
Yeah.
You stumble upon it in the woods, it gets excited, secretes this, it wants to rush you away, secretes this, it's mating, it does this sort of thing.
Right.
So we know that the big apes do this.
Yeah.
And so if that's what Bigfoot is and it does this, it makes perfect sense.
That's funny because there's a product we should have, I didn't think of it until now, was Dr. Sasquatch, or Dr. Squatch. Bar soaps and
you buy it at Walmart.
Yeah, you can buy it at Walmart. And so it's funny that, Bigfoot stinks, but there's a Dr. Squatch soap.
Hope it's not Bigfoot flavored or scented.
No. Let's hope not.
So you have reporting some credible persons and newspapers. Again, we could just read headlines of papers. I should have included some of those in this tonight as form of evidence.
There's just a lot of evidence, that's out there, and of course you can't cover all of it because it would take forever.
And you don't have to have everyone credible. You just need one.
Yep.
You just need one credible experience for it to be real.
Right.
Let's look at Okie Mountain.
Okay. Okie Mountain in Claiborne County, Alabama. This 1883 photo of a Bigfoot-like creature was found at a family homestead property, buried in a mason jar.
If that photograph is bona fide, legitimate, look at that, man.
That's a big boy. He's got a cane.
Yes, he's made friends with people. Looks like, and he even has a big walking stick.
I was reading up on this, as they say, and. Somebody said it was AI created, and others say it's legit, but he's got some big feet, and he's a big boy.
Oh, man. And he may be really old because he's walking kind of hobbled a little bit there.
Right.
It could be AI. I don't know. I probably should have vetted these a little bit more.
No, I mean, this is what's out there, and this is what we're looking at.
And this is a famous one. If you're familiar with Bigfoot, the Ape Canyon incident in 1924 is a popular story. Most folks that are into this know this. If you're outside of the Bigfoot culture, you don't know much about Ape Canyon. But if you're into this, you'll enjoy the story. The Ape Canyon incident of 1924 wasn't so much an alleged sighting as a supposed battle.
Right.
A group of gold prospectors claimed they defended their cabin against multiple guerrilla men in a gorge later named Ape Canyon on the side of Mount St. Helens. One of the miners, Fred Beck, allegedly shot at a Sasquatch during the day, which prompted a gang of hairy brethren to seek revenge come nightfall. The creatures are said to have pelted the miner's cabin with rocks and boulders, and one even reached an arm inside. The miners survived the onslaught, and as the sun rose, the beasts retreated back into the woods, possibly after Beck shot one. Terrifying experience. There's a more modern day story about this in the 20th century. The Sierra Sounds. Those guys went up in the woods at their camp. They went annually to hunt deer and elk or whatever this is in the camp. Yeah. And it was during one of those events that they had to get off and into their makeshift cabin and kind of weather the storm that night.
Right. It's before the term Bigfoot came about, it was described as an ape. Mm-hmm. That was how they that's what they identified it as. That's what it looked like.
Which is a more apt description than Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Because people can have big feet.
Yeah.
They don't look like a Sasquatch.
Right.
A Sasquatch is a Native American name, I believe.
Right. Which means, I think, hairy man or something like that.
If you guys are interested in this, I would encourage you to Google Sierra Sounds. These are supposed audio recordings of these men's experiences in the Sierras up there. And there are all kinds of odd vocalizations. What?
Yeah.
Well, what?
Yep.
And they're howling and talking back and forth, and
it's eerie.
Primitive language, right? And you hear on the recording that one of the men mimics this, and the thing talks back to him.
Right.
So we think of Bigfoot as the traditional Patty, the Patterson-Gimlin film, as this gorilla walking through the woods, but they might be smarter than that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a photograph of the newspaper clipping from the Devil Canyon, 1924. You can see that.
Then they changed the name to. Did they change the name to Ape Canyon? Or
I think so. Yeah.
I think that's what they did.
Ape Canyon. That's exactly right. Ape Canyon. How about the Humboldt Times?
All right.
Just what you mentioned earlier. So let's look at that one more time.
In 1958, journalist Andrew Gonzoli of the Humboldt Times highlighted a fun, if dubious, letter from a reader about loggers in Northern California who discovered mysteriously large footprints. And
it's out of this story that's reported that it was something was sabotaging their logging equipment at night, and they went back the next day. We're talking about equipment's turned over and ransacked, and they took plaster casts of these footprints in the mud, and that's where the name Bigfoot comes from.
Right. Yeah. This is that's when it started. Yep.
And now the evidence, which is hotly contested. Everybody knows Bigfoot. Knows this.
Right.
Harry and the Hendersons and the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Right.
So this is the evidence. I don't think this is the best I think there's better video evidence of Bigfoot out there than this.
Yeah.
And I've seen better video evidence of them. We'll look at some photographs and things on down the road that I think is even more convincing than this film. But this is the first Bigfoot on video film. So,
Right.
So Jerry, if you don't mind, introduce the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Oh, here
to
we
us.
go. One of the most famous sightings was made in 1967. The famous short motion picture known as the Patterson-Gimlin film captured an unidentified object that the filmmakers claimed was a Bigfoot, and a female one at that, I believe. Photographers Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin shot the famous image on October 20th of 67.
Okay, so and now they were up there for that purpose. They took video cameras. They rode horseback up this trail. You can go to the physical location where this was, and people have gone back since. And they, not long after this was filmed, and for perspective, had people walk along this area and photograph them to show perspective how big this patty was.
Right.
Now the debate was the guy in a suit? A couple of folks that come forward and said I was one of them. I was a man in the suit. But the problem is you've got multiple folks saying they were the guy in the suit.
Right.
So they could both be lying, but they can't both be telling the truth.
Yep. And that pose, of course, in the movie Elf, the dude that played Elf is in Central
Will
Park.
Ferrell.
Will Ferrell, and the picture of him is in that pose there. You know.
That's right. I never noticed that.
Yeah.
He's got a Bigfoot. Now, people in the Bigfoot world have coined the nickname for this Sasquatch as being Patty.
Mm-hmm.
As first, it's female because if you can see in the film, this creature has breasts.
Right.
As a female, right? Big breast like a female. And because Roger Patterson filmed it, they just nicknamed this creature Patty. So if you ever hear the phrase, it looks like a patty type.
Yeah.
It's this type of Bigfoot.
Right. It may have been moobs. I don't know if male
Man
Bigfoots
moobs.
have moobs. They wouldn't be called moobs. I guess they'd be called, well, I don't know what they'd be called.
You know, I've heard, Roger Patterson's dead, but Bob Gimlin was the man that was videotaping this. And Patterson, I think, jumped off of his horse and steadied a rifle while Gimlin, I think, filmed this. I think that's how it worked out. And Bob Gimlin is still alive today as of November 15th, 2023. He's still alive and still does tours and still interviews.
Oh, wow.
And his perspective of this was that, of course, she's briskly walking away, covering a lot of ground. And people say, why didn't you go off in the woods after her? When they said, and Gimlin says that there were other Bigfoots in the immediate area, off camera, out of sight, that she could hear. And this is a mother, and she was trying to scurry the younger ones off into the woods and to disappear and get away. And they were afraid to go after her because there were other ones behind the other side to the left you don't see in the video.
Wow.
And so they kind of got spooked off of filming any more of this and kind of left in haste. Even though they had rifles and guns or whatever, they decided to go ahead and get out of it. They had enough evidence they needed to get on out. Now, people say that Roger Patterson, who's now dead, this is all publicity stunt to make money. And while he did make money, I did profit off this. These guys didn't die super wealthy. Roger Patterson didn't die super wealthy. And he did not deny it on his deathbed. He kept this, and Gimlin has not denied it to this point. He's an elderly man now, and you can meet him today and talk about this very incident. Both men have confirmed this to be true. They have not backed off of this, and neither of them got super rich off of this either.
Right.
Let's take a look at some photos if you're curious. Then we'll alternate and discuss these here. So this is one I showed recently on Facebook. I'm going to send you a link here. October of this year, just last month, about a month ago. Bigfoot was caught on camera in Colorado mountains by Stephanie Weaver, published in October. So there's a video of this. This is just a still shot of it.
Yeah, that's last month.
Yep. It shows this big creature walking up this hillside, this mountainside, covered in grass, and then he sees the train coming because they're riding on a train, and he stops and sets down to kind of hide.
Blends in with the scenery. Somebody said, several said, oh, it's a ghillie suit. It's a guy hunting elk. Or it's, it's staged by the railroad company to promote tourism, like we talked about earlier.
Or just like Scooby-Doo misters, to scare somebody off the gold they're trying to acquire.
Right.
We don't know for sure, but I would encourage you to just Google Stephanie Weaver, Colorado Mountains, Bigfoot.
Yep.
And it's a very recent video,
Yep.
and you can see this creature. The video's probably like 10 seconds at most. They're on a train. She's got her phone out. She videotapes this. It just kind of people talking on the camera. I think her husband, you can hear him talking. Seems to be surprised. They all talk about, look at that thing right there, welcome to the thing. It goes a couple steps and then it turns and sits down and it's still to hide.
Yeah, didn't wave at anybody, so.
Nope. And so these are some photographs taken, of course, and I don't know where this one's taken, but this is a photograph of, you can see clearly a giant Sasquatch in the woods. Spooky enough. If I saw that, I would go the other direction.
Yep.
This is the famous Patterson-Gimlin film. If you want to watch that now, the film has been stabilized. They've got computer ways of stabilizing that and zooming in. And experts have seen this. And one of the debates about this film is, they say it's costume. When evidence against that is, the only other costumes in the world that were of similar quality was Planet of the Apes costumes.
Yeah.
And the people who manufactured those costumes in Hollywood, of course, they're getting paid money to professionally make costumes for a movie series, Planet of the Apes, said that the quality of this costume, if it is such, was beyond the quality that what they could make at the time they were making professional costumes for these movie series.
Right.
Because, people who saw the video can say you can see muscle ripple, you can see parts of anatomy and things that seem to be real convincing. And then I've enlarged, as you can see on the screen, Patty's face and blown that up so you can kind of see that this is a female. She's not the person you take home to mama, right? She's not the marrying kind.
Right.
But it's common,
Just
hair
walk
covered.
on by.
That's right. Hair covered creature.
Right.
And you've got some pictures taken on game cameras. Sometimes they're just flashes like this. A lot of game camera films is blurry because it's a photograph, so it's going to be blurry. If you go by something really quickly and the camera takes your picture already moving, it's going to be a little blurry.
Yep.
So people aren't posing. Sometimes you have deer. If you have a feeder out and deer come and eat, and they take pictures because they're real still because they're eating. But if you got something walking past, you get blob squatch pictures like you see here on game cameras. And then here's a skunk ape, and this is a video. I've taken this still shot from a video, and of course I'll circle where it is.
This too, yeah.
It's a guy on a canoe, or a kayak rather, going through this somewhere in Florida, through this wetland, swamp area, and you see this thing walking out, sitting down, getting in the water, splashing, drinking, walking across.
Right.
Guy in a suit, we don't know, but it's a video. You can always Google that, skunk ape. How about that one? To me, that's very convincing looking. It looks like a great ape.
A lot like Patty.
You see kind of the back left shoulder of this thing walking away. I think this is taken by a person. It's not a trail cam. I think this is reportedly a person took that. It's pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
And if we're talking about photographs, this next one's going to blow your mind.
Wow. I'm looking on the TV over here.
Either way you want to see it. What do you think about that?
That really looks more like a gorilla, doesn't it?
Sagittal crest.
Yeah.
Profile. I think it has a hooded nose, though, if you can see.
Yep.
Great apes don't have hooded noses. They just have nostrils you see through. We have the hooded nose. We have
Right.
So you can kind of see this is not normal, man. If this is a bona fide, legitimate photograph, and it supposedly is so, that'll keep you awake at night if you live in that neighborhood.
Yeah. I keep looking on the...
Well, look at that if you want to.
I am looking at it because it's bigger.
How about this one?
Yeah, that
More
was just
photograph.
creepy there. Yeah, any of this would get me out of the woods in a hurry.
I go somewhere else. And how about that one?
Yeah.
You're walking down a woods, you're following some big trails of a Bigfoot in the snow, and then you think, "Oh, I'll track this thing down." He stops and looks like, "You following me?" Like,
No,
just
I'm
going
leaving,
that way.
bud.
I'll go the other way. I meant to go the other way, man. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. If
I'm
I'm in your
sorry.
way, I didn't mean to be here. How about that one?
That's really, really creepy. Wow, that looks like
You
a...
look at the TV for that one.
Yeah, look at the TV that.
Either way you want to look at it, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's wild, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Again, some of these, because they're hidden, you can see the nose,
Oh,
eyes,
yeah, I see it
sagittal
now.
crest, the big pointed head.
Right. Oh, I see it now.
TV help you a little bit there?
Yeah, now that you pointed it out there, I can see it there too.
So one of the reasons that gorillas have this big pointed head is because these trapezoid muscles, which come off of the head and the neck and everything. I understand. I don't know biology, and I'm no
You're not
expert
Jane
in this
Goodall?
stuff. No, I'm not. But they say it's to have these because it gives tremendous biting power. These muscles that come down from the top of their head,
Yeah.
it gives tremendous leverage when they jaws because they eat. Of course, they're primarily vegetarians, but they eat things they got to bite through, right?
Right.
I mean, a gorilla has tremendous amount of jaw bite, of psi when their bites. They have huge canine teeth, but no, they're not meat eaters. They're
Yeah, I mean, this picture here, there's no, sharp teeth like in a gorilla.
Yeah. So. And I've heard of reportings of Bigfoot that had all flat teeth.
Yeah.
Because we're going to look at tonight, for special treat, Jerry, 4 types of Bigfoot.
Oh, this is a treat.
Your literature didn't have that. We're going to look at 4 types of Bigfoots. So another picture there before we close out. Trail cams, pictures taken by hikers in the woods.
I see the nose, the
that's
mouth
probably
there.
the last picture you ever take is that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you've taken that picture in the woods, it's probably the last one you're going to be taking.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't look happy with you. All right, and there's the last one there, the photographs. So you can, if you're just curious of the subject and you want to say, I'm going to do a deep dive and jump into Alice's hole in the Wonderland and go down the rabbit hole, you're going to see photographs and pictures. This is kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of YouTube channels to listen to people's stories that come in, that call in, and radio interviews and things like that. So anyway. Well, let's discuss Bigfoot. I'll tell you, this may be a little bit longer than most of our studies, but let's spend some time with this here.
Okay.
Well, how many Bigfoot are there? Because you have to have a viable breeding population. If it exists, if they exist, you can't be one.
Right.
And we've seen the photographs. It's not the same one. What's unknown? Maybe 4,169. That's pretty exact. Guesses range. Guesses range. I guess they put out the census, the last newest census we had. Our guesses range from a mere 700 individuals to a whopping 100,000. The BFRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization, estimates 2,000 to 6,000 individuals. There are good arguments for as many as 10 times that amount. That sounds like a lot, right? Like we'd be swimming in Bigfoot if there were that many.
Oh, yeah.
But you have to have enough. A breeding population indicates you have to have enough to make babies, and the DNA has to be diverse enough. The gene pool has to be deep enough that you can swim in that pool.
Right.
So you can't have just 2.
No.
You have to have enough that the gene pool is deep enough to keep making them. Well, here's some facts.
All right.
Mountain gorillas have an average range of about 8 miles.
Okay.
The Neanderthal, they estimate, had a range of about 20 miles, meaning from where you would live and hunt, about 20-mile range. And the grizzly bear,
Yes.
which we know, you can put trackers on these things, has an average home range of about 160 miles square. These are square miles, right? So, grizzly bear, because the bigger the animal, the more that it eats, the more area it has to live in to get enough food. Because food didn't jump down a Bigfoot's mouth.
No.
Like a grizzly bear has to eat salmon in the salmon run in certain times of year, then it has to go eat other things, right? It's an omnivore.
It's an omnivore.
It has to know where things are to eat it to keep it alive. And of course, it even hibernates to compensate for some of the lack of its food.
Right.
So the bigger the animal, the bigger the range it has to move to keep itself fed. Now, mountain gorillas have a small range. While it's a big animal, it's eating plants, and the plants that it eats is pretty dense in the area where it eats, so it doesn't have to go far to find its food. But if it's an animal that depends upon other things to eat, and with a scarcity, it has to have a bigger range.
Right. Hypothetical. If a troop of 4 Bigfoot need a home range comparable to a grizzly bear's 160 miles, then a country like the United States with 2.3 million miles of undeveloped mountain and forest land would have enough land for 14,375 troops of big feet.
Now, a troop could have more than 4 in it.
Right. That's 57,500 Bigfoot.
Right. So we could talk about 60,000. And you think, why don't you see these? People say, wow, you think we'd be bumping into these things all the time. I would encourage you guys to do this. Go to Google Maps and just go to the satellite view of where you live. It's going to pull up your house, and you'll see how much greenery there is all around your house.
Yeah.
Did you know that the entire population of the world can fit in the state of Texas, and the population be less dense than New York City?
Wow. It's a lot
8 billion folks on the earth can all move to Texas tomorrow.
Yeah.
And again, you'd have to have the houses, but the population in Texas would be less dense than New York City.
That's fascinating.
So that's the rest of the earth could be just left to let the animals have it.
Yep. Yeah, there are large swaths of really unexplored forests.
There's national parks and stuff that's not been inhabited. There are privately owned lands. Farmers have acres and acres of lands, and some that can't even farm because it's just too rugged or there's not a good land to farm. There's lots and lots, and really, if you're an animal, it's mostly nocturnal and moves at night, moves along creeks and rivers and ways you can kind of keep yourself concealed. You can, and caves and wherever else, you can stay hidden and eat good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But obviously our argument tonight is not that they've stayed hidden because we have photographs of them.
Right.
They've not stayed too hidden because we have evidence that there's tracking places and leaving DNA and they're leaving scat and all kinds of things out there.
Eyewitnesses, thousands of people that have seen a Bigfoot.
Yep.
This quote says, "It is very probable that the Sasquatch population, being composed of animals with a long lifespan, few offspring, and a little culling by predators, will display wide physical variations seen in such reported aspects of facial features, diverse coat colors, and the large variance of foot proportions."
Mm-hmm.
That's Wolf Fernbach.
So, and I forgot what I got it off of the Sasquatch Chronicles website, but I can't think of what his credentials are that would value his quote. But the point is, one of the things I want to make note of this quote is that few predators to cull the herd.
Mm-hmm.
If Bigfoot's top of the food chain, not much stuff's hunting a Bigfoot. Just like if you go to Africa, the plains, a lion hunts everything out there. Gazelles, zebra, anything else. But not much is hunting a lion.
Right.
So you don't have to have a big population of lions.
Right.
Because they're not making a bunch of babies every time they just have a gestation period give birth to a lot of babies. They're not making a litter of 6 lions. You don't need that if you're top of the food chain.
Right.
Because nothing's eating you.
Right.
Your survivability is high because you're the top of the food chain. Now, if you're another animal and you're eaten by other things, you tend to make more babies when you make babies.
Right.
So we would think that Bigfoots may have big troops, but it's quite possible that they live a long time and that they have a small family group. So let's look at the 4 types of Bigfoots. Now, if you're familiar with the Sasquatch Chronicles TV radio series, YouTube series, and I can't think of the man. I'm blocking his name. Will, I think. Anyway, look this up. This comes from his website. Based upon thousands of interviews, reported eyewitness accounts, based upon geography, he's found 4 different types of Bigfoots, ranging from the Pacific Northwest, Ohio, the skunk ape in Florida, the type of East Texas, and he found that there's regions where these Bigfoots have certain physical attributes or qualities common to each region. And they have different types of temperaments, different ways of interacting with people, different types of intelligences. Now, he's just compiling data based upon when people call and say, I'm from Ohio and this is what I found. I'm from Florida, I saw this. I'm from Michigan and I saw this. He's just took all that composite data and he's just basically said, man, after all these interviews, I'm finding a pattern. This is what they look like in these certain areas, and we're gonna break this down. Let's alternate if you don't mind.
Yeah, that's great.
Some of this is gonna spook you a little bit. You okay
Man,
with this?
I'm good. I'm ready.
So, number 1, and I'll look at you. Odd you do even. How about that?
Yeah.
So the type 1, it's called the Patty type.
Okay.
So type 1 Bigfoot, aka also known as the Patty type. This is the classic Sasquatch. It looks like a cross between a human and a mountain gorilla. Has a large, powerful build, a thick, broad chest, black hair, and gray skin. Other hair colors reported are brown, auburn, cinnamon, and occasionally white. The head, though massive, has been described as relatively small for the body. Type 1s sometimes develop a sagittal crest, that's the pointed top, which can look like a person wearing a hoodie. They have a conspicuous brow ridge with receding forehead, giving the eyes a deep-set look. The eyes are hard to see, but have been reported to be proportionally further apart than humans' eyes, which enables binocular vision and darkness vision, too. Type 1s have a flat face with prominent cheekbones and a square jaw. They're thick. Typically, they're 4 foot wide in the adult males and 2 foot thick. The mouth region is only slightly protuberant. The nose is near human in shape, though pug or flat, sometimes with forward directed nostrils, like a human nose. Maybe you think of like Patrick Ewing's nose, right? An African person's features, right? Wide nose, short but wide nose. The height average for the sample population is 7 feet, 7'10". However, alpha males have been reported at 9 feet and larger. The average type 1 is estimated to weigh between 500 and 800 pounds. Now, before we get into type 2s. That's Patty, Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Had a friend recently, I didn't know he had this sighting until he made a Facebook comment on mine. He went to school with this guy. And I'm not going to say his name, but if you, on my Facebook page, I put a picture of a Bigfoot out there. And he said, I saw that kind of thing. He described it. Remember, he said, he sent that to you, right?
Yep.
He said it was crossing so many lanes of traffic up in the Blue Mountains, and I forgot, Oregon, I think he said. I'm not familiar with the geography up there, but it was snowy, and he was heading back to Kentucky this way, and he saw it stepping across, and it was a Patty-type Bigfoot that he said he saw.
It was like, early in the morning, like, or late at night morning, so it wasn't, somebody that was dressed up waiting to scare people when they come by. It was just a...
Yeah, why would you be in a Bigfoot costume at 1 in the morning on a snow-covered road, waiting for the next person? You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't be the last thing you would do.
Right.
That's type 1s. That's the one you're familiar with. That's here in the Hendersons.
Yeah, this is the one I'm most familiar with.
Now the type 2s.
Oh, here we go.
Look at the pictures there.
Yes,
Look at the type 2s.
It's looking more ape-like. Type 2 seems more ape-like than type 1s. They're reported in many areas of North America, but especially in the South. Type 2s have a bestial man-like build with large eyes and large pupil dilation for night vision. The hair is most often reported as black, but auburn, orange, and cinnamon have been reported as well. A bit smaller than type 1s, the average height is around 7 feet. Type 2s tend to be very territorial and can be aggressive. They seem to kill a lot of livestock, especially the smaller varieties such as goats and chickens. Type 2s leave a human-like footprint but can seem very much like known primates, especially chimps, orangutans, and billy apes.
Billy apes are a large type of chimpanzee.
Right.
I encourage you guys to look at pictures of billy apes. It's recently discovered, I think. It's a huge chimp. So type 2s are mostly in the South. They're more animal than man.
Right.
More like a chimp. Very aggressive, very territorial. These are the ones that if you find them in the woods, you're not walking out. They're probably, if they find you, you're not walking out, according to the stories.
Right.
Especially look at those missing person 411, Pilates books and stuff he's written. Basically, his assumption in the 411 book series is that many missing persons that people go in the woods to hunt he attributes that to these creatures taking them off. Now, he's a retired police officer. He did a forensic investigation of all the missing people cases, and people sometimes they're never found. Their clothes are found.
Right.
If you don't take your clothes off and go, in the woods, and just weird things. People like hunting this area their whole life. They're not demented. They go over here to the tree stand, and 6 hours later they'll come home, and then they're just missing.
They're missing, right.
You find their shoes, scraps of clothes out in the woods, but you don't find any part of them. Sometimes you find their guns and stuff twisted and beaten, and the stocks beaten off of them, but you don't find the people.
Right.
Nothing like this. It wasn't a robbery because you found their pants. It's got the wallet and keys and everything in there. It wasn't like there's any motivation for this. So type 2s in the South, where we live, most likely have a type 2er. Type 3. This type 3 is what many folks think the dog man is.
Right.
So I'm going to
show you that in that first picture.
So the type 3 is something like a mandrill human mix. They look similar to a Bigfoot, but more savage or primal. Descriptions of the face vary, but the most reports a large dog, bear, baboon-faced bipedal mammal. This is what many folks think the dog man is just a variation of the Bigfoot. Type 3s can be extremely tall, 10-footers, 15-footers, reported with oversized heads and look more like monster-like than ape-like. They tend to live up in the mountains, but will come down for food. The fur is typically dark or deep brown. One witness reported seeing the type 3 wearing animal pelts over their fur. They may eat humans, but reports of man-eating are rare and often based on very old legends. Type 3s tend to incite reports of paranormal characteristics like having glowing red eyes or being bulletproof at close range.
Well, there you go.
I mean, if you're shooting at something, a big animal with a small caliber gun, you're not going to take it down.
Right.
And if you're panicked, you might only make contact with one of the 6 rounds that you have.
Yeah.
So you go hunting elk with the 22.
Right.
Go try to get moose with the 22.
Right.
You're just going to make it mad and it's going to run off and it's not going to die,
Right.
most likely.
Hmm.
So a lot of folks in Michigan think that spot something like the dog man, right? In the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, on the Canadian side, up toward the border of Canada. You know?
Is there a dog man legend close to in Kentucky?
Yeah,
around the
LBL.
Kentucky lakes, right?
LBL has the dog man,
Right.
based upon an eyewitness account, and also upon a homicide of a couple or a family that was killed in a camper there.
Hmm.
And I might bring it next week.
Yeah.
Now, of the 4 types, this next one spooks me the most.
Okay.
If one patty, if they exist and if these 4 types exist, I'd rather see patty type than any of them.
Oh yeah.
That's the foot shuffling, granola eating, Harry Henderson. I'm going to be fine with you. I'll see you a wave and we're going to be fine.
Type 2, type 3, I don't want to meet.
I don't want to see type 2 or 3. Type 3 especially. Well, actually, type 2 was kind of aggressive. It's in the south. They're darker, always darker colored, but more aggressive toward people in their territory.
Right.
Type 4 really creeps me out.
All right, I'm excited.
Type 4.
Ooh. Mm. Yeah. Ugh. Type 4 reports often come from the northeast. They have been referred to as early man Bigfoot and the American Almas. They are the most human-looking of the hairy bipedal humanoids, possessing traits of archaic and prehistoric man. They're typically a bit leaner than type 1s, but are still large and well-muscled. A hairy Homo heidelbergensis link is a decent model for type 4, whatever that means. You have to explain that one. They have less facial hair than other types.
Okay, so the Homo heidelbergensis is a stage in human evolution. It's one of the branches of the evolutionary tree. And people that see this type of Sasquatch in the woods will say, when they look at the evolutionary tree, these pictures have been around. They say, that's the one that we saw. That's the guy that we saw in the woods. And it's basically a Neanderthal-looking guy.
Right.
Tall, lean, but a human face. So human that people say when they've seen this in their crosshairs, hunters, they couldn't pull the trigger because it looked too man-like.
Huh.
And then it screams or does something extremely savage, or it runs or does something to say that wasn't a man, because it goes over a fence. It does something to show how big it was, and because you see something in the woods, if there's nothing to give perspective, you think, it's just a person in a hoodie. And then it steps over a 4-foot fence, or it stands beside a telephone pole, and you say, "Wow, that thing's twice as big as a man would be." And you look through crosshairs. There have been many hunters who've seen something like this in the crosshairs, right? And saw the face, and it's looking at him and say, "That's a man. I can't shoot that thing." Well, anyway, so you see pictures on the screen. Less hair on their face. It's pretty clean face. A Neanderthal-looking person.
The crown of the head can have thinning hair or even be bald on top. Some eyewitnesses have reported beards and mustaches ranging from just noticeable to fully grown. Type 4s have round, not conical heads. Their noses are hooded. The mouth is wider than what we would consider normal. The teeth are square and human-looking.
So in some of the photographs we saw, we may have seen something look like that.
Yeah.
Particularly, I'm going to go back to this if you guys are okay. I think this would be a type 4. I'll go back to the photographs. The one that sort of creeped me out a little bit. There it was.
Yeah.
That's more of a type 4.
Yeah.
It's kind of a clear face, flat teeth, very much a person. If you saw someone like that, someone that looked like that with a ball cap on, you think that's a person.
Right.
Except it's 7 foot tall.
Except it's a big boy.
I heard someone to say today, I think the numbers are right. Of course, there's a standard distribution of height in a country. It's kind of a bell curve.
Right.
And there's people who are little people or dwarfs or whatever you say on the small end of things, a small percentage. And then there's people that's really, really tall on the other end of things. Well, I think there's only 150 to 200 people that are 7 foot tall or taller in this country. Out of how many millions in this country? 300 million people. There's only 120 people. What did I say? 120?
Yeah, and they all play in the NBA.
Right. Some of them do. And some of them are outstanding. the guy that was just drafted by the San Antonio Spurs, Lumumba, whatever his name
yeah.
is, he's a phenomenal player.
Right.
He's going to be good for a long time. He's got multiple skill set, but he's tall. He's tall and lanky. If you saw him in the woods, you know his person.
Yep.
Some people have described this Sasquatch version they've seen as being like an NBA player. Wasn't particularly robust or thick, just kind of like an NBA build, tall and lean. And some have said no, it was as thick as it was wide. So they do have some ranging and characteristics, obviously.
Well,
and there's 4 different types. So
well, this one scares you the most. This type.
It does
4.
because it's so smart.
Yeah.
This is the one that people say. Again, whether or not you believe this, the stories are this thing knows how to open doors. They come to people's homes.
Yeah.
People report waking up and this thing rummaging in their house, knocking things around.
Yeah.
It's figured out how to undo latches to go in outhouses and things like that. It's smarter. It's a Neanderthal, basically. It watches and sees what we do. No, it can't drive a car, but it recognizes a gun when you brandish a gun at it. It shouts. It runs away. It does things that it organizes ambushes when it's hunting people. It has that some of that Sierra sounds, kind of stuff.
Okay, that's the one.
This is the
Type 4.
This is the guy talking to you in the woods, or talking to his buddies in the woods about you.
Right. How they're gonna tell you limb from limb.
And again, whether or not I believe in Bigfoot or not, this guy who has the website, who has a YouTube channel that does the interviews, after years and years of doing interviews with eyewitnesses, has basically said, this is the type, this is the type, this is the type. This is where they are, this is what they do. Now, they're not exclusively limited to the range just because the dogman type has been reported down here in the south because they walk waterways and they travel different places. But anyway.
Wow. All right.
So how's eyewitness testimony scientifically unreliable?
Apart from that, there's no proof. It's just what you saw. You may have seen it, or you may have seen something, and your mind said it's this. You're seeing a Bigfoot. So.
Yeah. You can't say that eyewitness is enough for the science community to confirm if thing exists. You can't even say a photograph or video evidence is good enough for it to exist because you can say you can always fake that stuff.
Yeah, but eyewitness testimony is important. This is kind of a Christian study of cryptids. Eyewitness testimony in the Bible is a pretty strong evidence for Christ.
That's our proof of the gospel of the resurrection of Christ. Eyewitness testimony. People have heard the gospel based upon eyewitness testimony, have come to faith and salvation based upon eyewitness testimony.
Yeah.
I'm going to push on a little bit. We're close to the end. Cast of footprints. This is the most common types of evidence.
Footprints, as you said, are the most common type of evidence to support the existence of Bigfoot. A plaster cast or photograph of the prints are often taken. Footprints come in a variety of sizes, with the average length being 16 inches long.
That's pretty long.
It's a big old foot.
So, lots of different footprints. Can you fake a footprint? Of course you can fake a footprint. Yeah. But Jeff Meldrum is the professor at one of the universities in Idaho State, or one of those universities in Idaho. And basically he has studied these enough and he's an expert on feet. And I think he coined a phrase, metatarsal break. It is how the Bigfoot's midway up its sole of its foot seems to flex like this, or when it steps on something. Unlike our foot, it tends to have a lot more flex to it.
Right.
And so that's kind of, so he can look at cast of prints and dismiss some as being fake, just based upon that.
Right.
And let's take a look at DNA evidence. So you see on the picture there, this is the different man, gorilla, and then Sasquatch. Probably patty type. It looks like a big one.
Yeah.
And then artistic, maybe a taxidermy. I don't know.
Yeah. That one looks like it would smoke a pipe.
Very smart. Looks like Beast from the X-Men.
Yeah.
All right.
Bigfoot is real. At least that's what veterinarian Melba S. Ketchum claims after a 5-year study of more than 100 DNA samples that she believes comes from the elusive hairy beast.
Ketchum's studies showed that part of the DNA her team sequenced revealed an unknown primate species. She said, which suggests that Bigfoot's real. Is a real creature that resulted from this primate crossing with female Homo sapiens.
That's what
So when you take a look at the DNA, you have it's a double helix, and one strand, one half of the spiral will be female from the mama's side, and one half is pairs of chromosomes from dad's side. And that's how you make this. And so when you when you sequence this DNA, I'm going to say the female side is man, Homo sapiens, and the male side is unknown primate of the samples they found. So this is an example of this creature breeding with known human females to make a creature meeting with known female humans to create this this Bigfoot thing.
So that's what Ketchum has determined from the DNA sequences.
Yeah. Now you can't say this is Bigfoot DNA because we don't have a bona fide Bigfoot DNA to compare it to. You can just say it's an unknown DNA.
Yeah.
So until you can confirm what DNA looks like from a Bigfoot, you can't say that's what this is, right? You can say, if you find blood on your fence post, say, oh, that's from an injured horse, right? Because we have horse DNA. We can compare DNA from this and match it with the horse of the horse. But at best you can do with this is say, we don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But when you break it down, it looks like we got a female Homo sapien on this strand of it, and you got a known primate on this side, whatever this is.
They're not any of the large apes. They branch off as a separate lineage, Ketchum said. My personal theory is that it probably branched off and evolved in parallel with the rest of the primate lineage.
So if you're a Christian, this language of evolved and branched off may be unsettling for you.
Right.
We said last week that it's pretty well established microevolution, that things adapt within species.
Right.
And I use the example of pigment in our skin colors to show that just people who have lighter pigment have lived traditionally further away from the equator.
Right.
Norwegian and whatever places like that. And people who have darker, more pigment in their DNA live closer to the equator. It's just so you have that's adapting to where you live over time. It's selective breeding, right? People who had a lot of sunburns tend to die off. They didn't breed with them for whatever reason it was. And those that were paler just got bred out of the population. Likewise, the inverse is true in northern areas, maybe where there was no need for that pigment and was shorter days and less exposure to sunlight, whatever the case would be. Well, you don't have to be an evolutionist to believe that Bigfoot exists. You don't have to believe that he's a branch off of a human species. You don't have to believe that this is an adaptation or something. You could believe that this is a species that God made that crossbred with another species that God made, which is man, and as a result produced this hybrid thing. Now, you say, after their own kind. Or maybe this kind was a type of a person. I don't know. I'm talking out of my ear here.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's how you look at the evidence, what evidence you choose to believe or discount. And for some, if a Bigfoot exists, it is some sort of ape, period. And they would discount this kind of evidence and as spurious or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And there's been, obviously, she's published this. People in the field have refuted this and said she's off here or there. There's been experts in the field who said Dr. Ketchum's work is not valid for whatever reason why.
Yeah.
You're always going to have that. So now, as we wrap up tonight, and we'll look at this again more next week. We could spend the next 2 months talking about this.
There's so much.
But we're going to be conscious of our time and respectful of our audience and just cover this in 2 parts, if that's okay, Jerry. And we'll look at other things next week. But let's wrap up tonight by looking at the theological implications of Bigfoot to this point.
All right.
Question 6. If conclusively proven true, how would DNA evidence change the way the scientific community views Bigfoot?
Well, they'd have to accept the reality of this creature.
It's a deal breaker, isn't
it?
It's the nail in the coffin of the Bigfoot doesn't exist.
Right.
Put that baby to rest. This thing is here to stay. And then we begin to say, well, are there really different types, and where does it live, and what does it eat? And we're going to invest more time in finding this thing. And many people are skeptical enough to say these have already been captured. There's been many reports from people who, and you hear interviews in these shows, call-ins, say I was in the National Guard and we get responded to do this or that, and we came across this thing, we killed these things.
The Men in Black show up and take it all away.
So many people think, well, it's already been proven. There's not a doubt among those that know. This is already known. It's just the community doesn't believe because it's not been accepted by the community at large.
Right.
Scientific community at large. Right. Question 7. If Bigfoot exists and is a result of interspecies breeding or evolution. Would this affect Christian theology?
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're a young Earth creationist and you hold to the literal 6-day creation, and you reject evolutionary theory, then you're going to have a different theological explanation. But if you're a theistic evolutionist, then you've got a different explanation. And so it depends on your theological standing, I guess, on how you would interpret some of the evidence. If Bigfoot exists, then obviously it's created by God.
Mm-hmm. Either way, it's created by God.
Either way.
Because everything exists as part of God's creation. It exists because He willed it to be. Yeah. I'm not a young Earth creationist, but I don't know that I buy into the theistic evolution either.
No.
I think that the Earth can be much older than we suspect that it is. But I do believe that sin enters the world through Adam, and I've got ways I can reconcile this with an older Earth.
Right.
That's perfectly fine. But if you're a young Earth creation, you can't believe in evolution because the time needed for adaptation, variation, and this sort of thing takes a lot more time than, say, 6,000 years.
Yeah. And, it's... if there's life on other planets, then... then God created that life too.
Sure.
So the whole thing, is the extent of the curse, and life forms on other planets need redemption and all this kind of stuff. So it's a massive discussion, massive implications.
Well, our DNA is polluted and it's messed up because of the fall.
Right.
And this is evident in people with severe birth defects and mental retardation and Down syndrome, and people born with all kinds of eye difficulties, and all kinds of stuff happens, right? That's a result of fallen DNA, right? We're corrupted and we're corruptible.
Yeah.
And there's nothing sinful about fallen DNA. I mean, if I'm born with a cleft palate, or if I'm born without eyelids, doesn't mean that I'm more sinful than the guy without it. It just means my DNA is corrupted by the fall.
Right.
It's fallen, and we're falling still.
Right.
So there's no moral statement about this person's born with this disease or illness. It's imperfect. It's just what.
Yeah. Who sinned? His mother or his father?
Oh, yeah, that's good. It's a question posed to Jesus.
Right.
Yeah. So you look at Bigfoot and you say, who sinned?
Right.
His primal ape dad or his Homo sapien
mom? Yeah.
So that's so if this exists, it could just be a variation of polluted DNA and interbreeding. I would say same species, intraspecies breeding.
Right.
They're close enough. It wasn't a man and a gorilla. It was something else.
Right. Right.
Anyway, so that's kind of tonight's study. I appreciate that. Thanks for taking the trip with me.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's Christians live in a world that has culture and folklore and traditions and mythologies, and you've got to just navigate these waters as a Christian and have Christian thoughts about these things, informed by the Bible. And there's what you'll find within the Christian community is a wide variety of understandings regarding these things.
Yeah.
So
if Bigfoot exists, you don't have to not be a Christian because the evidence of the empty tomb verifies Christian. You don't have to say. So then it poses questions like, does he have a soul? All of creation is fallen. The Apostle Paul says that all of creation groans into redemption. All of creation is fallen to some extent. So the lion didn't always hunt man and didn't hunt the gazelle and whatever. The lion is fallen and does fallen things, right?
Right.
If this exists, this smart ape-like creature exists, I don't know that it's soulish and needs to be redeemed.
Right. Will there be Bigfoot in heaven? Will there be dogs in heaven? Will there be Bigfoot in heaven?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be any animals in heaven, kitty cats or snapping turtles either. Right. I don't think this thing is a soulish thing.
Right.
But if I saw a gorilla in the woods, I wouldn't try to reason with it.
No.
I would try to protect myself and go the other way if I could.
I'd try to get out of there. Well,
next week,
we're going to part 2 Bigfoot. So
look at the
we're not done
explanations
with Wild Man yet.
So we spent more time, and we will spend more time on Bigfoot than the rest of them because it's the most plausible of all the cryptids.
Right.
The most mountains of evidence, eyewitness testimony, foot
Right.
castings, all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, than the rest of them. And it's a fun discussion.
Yep. Even my particular interest is more the, the cultural folkloric aspect of it. But certainly, if it exists, then it's not going to rock my theological world.
Good. Yeah, well, your Christianity has to be big enough. Your theology has to be big enough to accommodate new information.
Yeah, it's not a closed. Yes, there's not multiple versions. There's not multiple Christianities that are equally legitimate and true. There's one faith, and
what would it take to upset our Christian theology, proving a tomb with Jesus' body in it? That would do it for me.
yeah.
I wouldn't need to be a Christian.
No, yeah, if yeah, that's exactly right. Because he's
an ape walking around the Pacific Northwest, whatever. It wouldn't.
it's not gonna make me reconsider, my faith in Jesus. I was just like I said, do I want this thing to be real? That would be so awesome. But then I really think about it, especially with number 4. Nah, I don't want it to
I
exist.
come into your house.
Nah.
Or any of them. They're all terrifying to me, to be honest
Yeah,
with
I
you.
don't want
Dog
it.
man type or
Yeah.
chimpanzee type, whatever.
Yeah. Makes you want to move to the city.
All right. So yeah, if you ever think, well, these things you couldn't have an undiscovered species like this. Well, it's really smart and it bears its own dead and it lives to avoid people and it's always in the woods and like all animals know your smell and this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's elusive. Just do a satellite image of Google Maps of wherever you live. Pull back on the map a little bit, and you're going to see how much wild area there is wherever you live.
Right.
Even if you looked at, say, New York. I'm looking at New York. Okay, you'll see a big urban on the New York City and some other big cities.
You've been upstate New York?
Yeah. If you pull back a little bit, you're going to see that there are, in fact.
I've been in upstate New York in the Army, and it was winter training, and we were in those, woods, those forests, and man.
If it does exist, it might, and it's confirmed to exist, it might change people going into the woods and hiking.
It certainly would. Yep.
Or at least going into the woods not being protected with firearms and things.
Yep. And depending on the Squatch, bring the elephant gun.
Absolutely. Well, let's close out in prayer, brother.
Part 1's. All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for our study tonight. Thank you that, Lord, that we live in a world that there's so much interesting things and so many wonders, God. And we just thank you that our faith, Lord, is big enough to look at these things and have a Christian thought about them. Lord, beyond all of these things, Lord, we look to you and are thankful for our salvation, thankful for Christ, and thankful for our brothers and sisters. And Lord, we just pray that you continue to guide us in our thinking, whether it's thoughts on cryptids or thoughts on the end of time or thoughts on the gospel or whatever. Lord, be with us and let us be sanctified. Now, Father, be with the many needs round about us. Be with those who will watch, Lord, the needs that they have. Be with them. And thank you again, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. God bless you guys. We'll see you same bat time.
Same bat channel.
Live long and prosper.